Hello, everyone, and welcome to our yet another Leap Talk. Today's session will be led by Mr. Raju Dawadi. Welcome, Mr. Raju, who is a DevOps enthusiast and site reliability engineer at Oyster Financial. He is helping build DevOps and CNCF community in Kathmandu and is also a Google developer expert. Wow. In cloud platforms. He enjoys learning, implementing, and sharing experiences over cloud native technologies. So before we start, I don't think I need to remind you guys to please put your videos and microphones on mute. And if you guys have any questions, let's just write it down on the chat so that we can look at it after Raju finishes his presentation. So today we will be looking into briefly about challenges of handling a bigger number of services in a traditional way and dive more deep into what and what not. It's really a hard word for me. Kubernetes. Sorry. So before I jumble up, sorry. So before I jumble up more words, I'm not such a tech person if you've already known that. So I will just hand this over to Raju. So Rajuji, please take over.
Yeah, thank you for welcoming. And thank you for attending also. So मलाई चाहिँ सुरुमा यो भूमिका बाँधेर भन्नुपर्दा चाहिँ लिपटकको त्यो एकदम लामो रिलेसन जस्तो लाग्छ क्या। पहिले म कलेज पढ्दाखेरि हुन्छ नि कलेज पढ्दाखेरि पनि लिपटकमा कहिलेकाहीँ आइरहेको हुन्थेँ। अनि एकचोटि एउटा इभेन्ट सम्झिन्छु क्या म। जस्तो फिल्म हेर्न गएको बेलामा चाहिँ लास्ट फाइट भन्छ नि लास्ट फाइट छोडेर लिपटकको लागि भनेर आएको थिएँ क्या म। सो द्याट्स अ काइन्ड अफ लङ रिलेसन अथवा त्यो long visibility भनौँ हैन, because people like other companies go like invite गरेर, so sharing the knowledge, so that's a very good platform. So thank you for organizing this throughout the time. So I think 2 or 3 years something भइसक्यो होला. That's the one like मैले follow गर्न थालेको चाहिँ. Okay, so let me increase my volume. Okay, so yeah, and बिचमा चाहिँ if there is anything like if you want to ask any question or something, so just stop me. अथवा केही बुझेन भने अथवा केही भएन भने just stop me and त्यसपछि raise the voice है. So let me share my screen. Okay, just give a hands up when you can see my screen. Okay, perfect. So yeah, thank you all for joining. So मेरो बारेमा भन्नुपर्दा चाहिँ I've been like starting with the developer and DevOps only. So I'm like reading and implementing things which are kind of people say as site reliability practices. So also involved as a SRE in Oyster and few of the companies both globally and locally also. And also building the DevOps and cloud native community. We just started a CNCF chapter in Kathmandu about one month before. So if you are interested, just join and get involved. So as so we'll start from like bit of monolith to microservices migration, and especially what we can expect from the microservices, what are the challenges we face, and how the microservice architecture or Kubernetes fits by itself, and especially why we need the service mesh, and this we'll like dig more into the Istio because it's one of the popular one, the service mesh platform which is being used widely. And त्यसपछि कसरी चाहिँ how do we dive into Istio, and there's a brief demo also, so what we can achieve from the service mesh and like what kind of like fancy things we can do with it भनेर. So मैले टाइटलमा चाहिँ नेटवर्किङ अथवा कनेक्टिभिटी आयो होइन, तर वी वन्ट टक अबाउट लाइक क्लाउड अनि त्यसपछि नेटवर्किङको भित्रभित्र कुराहरू, त्यसपछि क्युबरनेटिसले कसरी काम गर्छ भन्ने, त्यसपछि अनि ल्याङ्ग्वेज स्पेसिफिक कुराहरू, अनि anything I will share, so that all is open source, so you can use any of that. Yeah, open source. Okay, so हामीले एउटा माइक्रो सर्भिसमा माइग्रेट गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ हामीले सिक गर्ने च्यालेन्जेस अथवा सल्भ गर्न चाहेको कुरा भनेको वी निड लाइक मोर डिप्लोएबल युनिटहरू, अनि त्यसपछि सो द्याट लट्स अफ थिङ्स लाइक सो यसमा चाहिँ कतिवटा सर्भिसमा ब्रेक गर्ने भन्ने चाहिँ एउटा मेजर कुरा आउँदो रहेछ क्या। जस्तो हामीले वेस्टरमा सुरु गर्दाखेरि पनि इट वाज लाइक अराउन्ड 5-10वटा सर्भिसबाट सुरु गरिरहेको थियौँ, अनि त्यसपछि वेयर कन्फ्युज लाइक कुन कुन सर्भिसलाई कता कता ब्रेक गर्ने भनेर। सो वी हेभ रिच्ड अराउन्ड लाइक 70 सर्भिसेस अहिले इन स्प्यान अफ 1.5 years त्यस्तै भयो होला। So that's one of the challenge नै भनौँ while breaking down the service. That could be like breaking down the existing service अथवा newly built platform. तर लकिली हामीले चाहिँ सुरुबाटै अलि सर्भिसहरूलाई ब्रेकडाउन गर्दै अनि त्यसपछि सर्भिस मेस पनि सुरुबाटै एडप्ट गर्दै गएको हुनाले सो वी हेभ सिन द च्यालेन्जेस। तर त्योभन्दा पनि अगाडि चाहिँ while I was engaged at outside our page vamp formerly, so त्यहाँ पनि we did a Kubernetes migration, तर सर्भिस मेस थिएन, अनि त्यसपछि माइक्रो सर्भिस भनेर there are like tons of सर्भिसहरू पनि थिएन, so always like exposed through the HTTP API gateway or somehow around that. So I would also like दुईटै कुराहरूलाई रिलेट गरेर how we can अथवा what benefit I got अथवा we got, so we'll dive into that. सो हामीले एक्सपेक्ट गर्ने कुराहरूमा चाहिँ मोस्टली रेजिलियन्सी, लाइक एउटा सर्भिस फेल भयो भने पनि अल रेस्ट अफ द सर्भिसेस फङ्सनिङ भन्ने कुराहरू एक्सपेक्ट गर्छौँ होइन। अनि त्यसपछि टिम बिल्ड हुँदै गइसकेपछि वी निड सम काइन्ड अफ फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी फर द डिप्लोइमेन्ट, अनि वी निड द स्पिड लाइक चेन्जलाई चाहिँ एकदम फास्टली रोल आउट गर्नेदेखि लिएर वी निड द स्केलेबल सर्भिस, अनि त्यसपछि वी टेन टु बी मोर फ्लेक्सिबल इन टर्म्स अफ द ल्याङ्ग्वेज अथवा सम काइन्ड अफ एप्लाइङ द प्याकेजेस अथवा लाइब्रेरिज अथवा जे पनि हुनसक्छ होइन, द्याट लाइक increasing the overall efficiency. अनि त्यसपछि त्यो सर्भिसहरू भइसकेपछि चाहिँ लेट्स से भनौँ न हामीसँग 5वटा सर्भिस छ भने द्याट हेज काइन्ड अफ one level of observability हुनसक्छ, अथवा if we reach into 50 that becomes like kind of complex. So in terms of the even repo management देखि लिएर सर्भिसको इन्स्टलेसन फेजदेखि लिएर, so after the deployment and त्यसपछि त्यसको मोनिटरिङ, त्यसको डेटाबेसको कनेक्सन अथवा एक्सटर्नल सर्भिसेसको कम्युनिकेसन सोर्सेस सबै कुराहरूमा चाहिँ कम्प्लेक्सिटीहरू आउँदै गर्छ। तर त्यसलाई पनि वी डिफिट भनेर वी एक्सपेक्ट द्याट फ्रम द माइक्रो सर्भिसेस होइन। सो यो भनेको चाहिँ एकदम बेसिक च्यालेन्जेसहरू, जस्तो फर इक्जाम्पल हामीले चाहिँ माइक्रो सर्भिस प्याटर्न फलो गर्दै जाँदाखेरि चाहिँ उनी सम काइन्ड अफ लेभल अफ एक्सपर्टिज चाहिन्छ होला होइन। अनि त्यसपछि सर्भिस डिस्कभरी, बिकज माइक्रो सर्भिस भन्ने बित्तिकै विल नट बी रनिङ लाइक सिङ्गल सर्भिस अथवा 1 or 2 इन्स्टान्स अफ द सर्भिस, अनि त्यो कता छ थाहा नहुने गरेर अथवा लाइक वी क्यानट लिभ द्याट हाजर्डली। सो त्यसमा चाहिँ सर्भिस डिस्कभरीको वान अफ द प्रब्लम। सो रिसोर्स म्यानेजमेन्ट अफ कोर्स, एन्ड देयर आर लट्स अफ सर्भिसेस, हाउ डु वी डिस्ट्रिब्युट द रिसोर्स एमोङ लाइक लट्स अफ द सर्भिसेस, तर त्यसमा पनि बाई म्यानेजिङ वाट दे रिक्वेस्ट अनि वाट लेभल अफ रिसोर्स वी क्यान एलोकेट फर द्याट। अनि अर्को भनेको चाहिँ अब्जर्भेबिलिटी। सो द्याट्स वान अफ द मेजर च्यालेन्ज। मैले अघि पनि भने जस्तै लाइक इफ यु हेभ लाइक 50, 100 or thousands अफ सर्भिसेस, सो त्यसलाई चाहिँ कसरी चाहिँ हामीले अलि डेभलपमेन्ट टिम फ्रेन्डली भनौँ अथवा अप्स टिम अथवा सबैको लागि चाहिँ हाउ वी क्यान बी अलर्टेड इभन, सो केही भयो भने हाउ वी क्यान बी अलर्टेड। अनि त्यसपछि लेट्स से इफ एप्लिकेसन इज लाइक पर्फर्मिङ स्लोली, सो वाट इज द कज भन्ने कुराहरू थाहा पाउनुको लागि पनि होइन। सो सेक्युरिटी इन्फोर्समेन्ट अफ कोर्स होइन। सो if there are like multiple services communicating, there are lots of network calls, and if there is some kind of like intrusion भयो भने चाहिँ like it's very hard to figure out होइन। let's say some one सर्भिसमा कुनै केही न केही मेबी लाइब्रेरीमा फल्ट हुनसक्छ अथवा कुनै नेटवर्क ह्याक्ड अर समथिङ केही हुनसक्छ होइन। सो त्यो हुँदाखेरि चाहिँ द्याट हेज अ भेरी बिगर इम्प्याक्ट। सो अनि अर्को भनेको चाहिँ विथ द नम्बर अफ इन्क्रिजिङ सर्भिसेस राउटिङ पोलिसिज होइन। सो विच सर्भिस वान्ट्स टु कम्युनिकेट विथ हु, कुन सर्भिसलाई चाहिँ हामीले कुन सर्भिससँग कम्युनिकेट गर्न दिने, कुन सर्भिसलाई चाहिँ लिमिट गर्ने, सो त्यो कुराहरू चाहिँ द्याट बिकम्स अ च्यालेन्ज। सो त्यो फ्यु अफ द च्यालेन्जेसलाई चाहिँ क्युबरनेटिसले सम लेभलसम्म चाहिँ सल्भ गर्छ। सो बेसिक भनेको सर्भिस डिस्कभरी होइन। So if you're familiar with the Kubernetes, I will give a brief overview of the architecture. in a while. Let's say if we install a service and त्यो service चाहिँ let's say there could be number of containers or there could be number of instances of the application running. So त्यसमा चाहिँ कुन सर्भिस चाहिँ कुन इन्स्टेन्स अथवा कुन कम्प्युट मेसिनमा गएर रन भएको छ भने we don't need to care about that. We just have some kind of static URL or let's say service name or IP or something. So that gives more of the visibility or the service discovery. अर्को भनेको health checking, that's like easily implemented by the Kubernetes हैन. So if the service is healthy or not, so healthy नभएसँग सर्भ गर्नु भएन, अथवा if the service is crash looping, we need to get alert or we need to figure out and we need to solve that हैन. अनि त्यसपछि scalable of course. So धेरैवटा सर्भिस हुने बित्तिकै अथवा मिनिमल सर्भिसमा पनि scalability becomes a challenge. So यसमा चाहिँ Kubernetes along with the cloud, maybe public अथवा private जुनै पनि हुन सक्छ. So that solves up to the some kind of extent अनि resiliency मा पनि yes of course. So त्यसमा चाहिँ maybe we have like 1 or 2 nodes हुनु सक्छ चाहिँ if we have multiple nodes that could fail like recover the failover अथवा कुनै let's say if the zone is outage. So त्यो कुराहरुलाई चाहिँ Kubernetes some level सँग solve गर्छ. So directly going into microservices जानु भन्दा अगाडि चाहिँ considering some of us are not too familiar with the Kubernetes भनेर. So it's just a simple slide over here. So यसमा चाहिँ Kubernetes भनेको is all API driven. So everything we perform is all through the API server. It just have a API gateway. So त्यसमा चाहिँ there is a master node अनि त्यसपछि master अनि त्यसपछि compute node भन्ने हुन्छ. So master node मा चाहिँ it's more of a key value store where we store all of those configuration in the etcd cluster अनि त्यसमा controller scheduler हरु हुँदै चाहिँ. So हामीले चाहिँ for example मलाई चाहिँ कुनै एउटा containerized application run गर्नु पर्यो. So the foremost requirement for diving into Kubernetes चाहिँ we should have the application containerized or dockerized हैन simply. So so we say something like let's say I have one service. So त्यसमा चाहिँ that is dockerized. I have image hosted in somewhere in some kind of a Docker registry. So मलाई चाहिँ त्यो एप्लिकेसन अथवा त्यो इन्स्टेन्स चाहिँ let's say मलाई चाहिँ 5 वटा इन्स्टेन्स अथवा some level of instance चाहिँ रन गर्नु पर्यो भने चाहिँ we send all of the request त्यसलाई चाहिँ YAML अथवा JSON फर्मेटमा चाहिँ maybe with the APIs directly API solver कल गरेर हुन्छ अथवा using the command line which is kubectl. So त्यसबाट चाहिँ we request that to the API server अनि त्यो API server ले चाहिँ so त्यो master node मा भएको API server ले चाहिँ हामीसँग चाहिँ नोड्सहरु हुन्छ. let's say हामीसँग मास्टर छुट्टै भयो. नोड्स भनेको चाहिँ where the actual compute instance or let's say our actual workload run हुने ठाउँ चाहिँ नोड्सहरु भयो. So there could be like multiple nodes. So यसमा तीनटा छ भने based on the resource requirement of the resource request. So त्यो नोड्सहरु चाहिँ स्केल हुँदै जान्छ. अनि pod भनेको चाहिँ you can consider that as a docker container. There could be like multiple docker container in a pod. तर let's consider one. तर एकछिन पछि हामीले चाहिँ दुईटा कन्टेनर हुन्छ भन्ने एउटा एक्जाम्पल सपोज गर्छौं. सो यो चाहिँ सिम्पली Kubernetes को आर्किटेक्चर भयो. सो हामीले चाहिँ API सर्भरमा कुनै पनि रिक्वेस्ट पठाएँ भनेदेखि चाहिँ मलाई चाहिँ अघि भने जस्तै दुईटा इन्स्टेन्स अफ सर्भिस चाहिँ कुनै एउटा एप्लिकेसन रन गर्नु पर्यो भनेदेखि चाहिँ हामीले API सर्भरमा रिक्वेस्ट पठाउँछौँ अनि त्यसलाई चाहिँ कुन नोडमा चाहिँ CPU मेमोरीहरु चाहिँ छ भन्ने कुरा डिटरमाइन गरेर चाहिँ सो दैट container or that pod is scheduled in that node. So हामी चाहिँ किन सर्भिस मेश चाहियो त हैन किनभने सर्भिस मेश चाहिँ MESS हुन सक्छ कुनै बेला चाहिँ किनभने इट्स अ काइन्ड अफ इभल्भिङ कुरा पनि. सो देयर आर लट्स अफ च्यालेन्जेसहरु पनि. सो त्यसमा चाहिँ हामीले चाहिँ जस्तो सर्भिस मेश कुन बेला चाहिन्छ भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ let's say हामीसँग चाहिँ सिम्पली 3-4 वटा एप्लिकेसनहरु छ 3-4 वटा सर्भिसेसहरु छ that is not too much of the like एकदम धेरै ओभरहेड टाइपको फर इन टर्म्स अफ द मोनिटरिङ सेक्युरिटीको कुराहरुमा अनि त्यसपछि अरु कस्टमाइज थिंग्सहरु चाहिएको छैन भने चाहिँ सर्भिस मेश नचाहिन पनि सक्छ. तर लेट्स dig into it so you can figure out if that is required or not. So service mesh भनेको चाहिँ it's a kind of like networking infrastructure things तर which runs on the application layer, means like L7 layer. So it is more of the HTTP aware things. So instead of like if there is a TCP kind of a thing, so that will not be more of the HTTP aware or in the so L7 मा run हुने भएको भएर चाहिँ that is more of the application layer awareness हुन्छ त्यसमा चाहिँ. So apart from that more reliability adding to the Kubernetes को services हैन अनि security र observability So that's kind of like main point for applying the service mesh. So त्यसमा चाहिँ Istio-लाई हेऱ्यो भनेदेखि चाहिँ इट्स अ काइन्ड अफ लाइक अहिले त आई वुड से लाइक डिफ्याक्टो फर द सर्भिस मेस, तर हामीले क्युबरनेटिसको मात्रै कुरा गऱ्यौँ यो सर्भिस मेससँग चाहिँ, तर इभन विदाउट द क्युबरनेटिस वी क्यान एप्लाई द सर्भिस मेसको कन्सेप्ट, तर the facilities or those services which are provided by the Kubernetes, we have to maintain that by our own self, because like there are few of the services like HashiCorp console भन्ने छ हैन. So there are other few also without the Kubernetes पनि service mesh को कन्सेप्टहरु चाहिँ that also fulfills to some extent. So यो चाहिँ completely like it lies in the middleware between all of those network calls. So service to service, if there is any of the calls, so that is like only intercepted by the service mesh or the Istio. So any of those like ingress अथवा egress, let's say हामीले load balancer बाट आएकोदेखि लिएर the connection to the database or any of those external things, all the traffic is intercepted by it. So it has a full level of visibility पनि. So even we can connect over the multi-cluster. So let's say we have one of the cluster in-house or there might be like multiple cloud cluster. So we can connect to multiple clusters and make them as a single cluster. So that's the kind of good thing. And resiliency, yeah, it has a, like apart from the Kubernetes resiliency, some kind of resiliency in terms of running the service, and especially if there is some kind of a failure, so that's like recover गर्ने कुराहरु. So adding that on the top of the Kubernetes, it's like 10 of the fastest growing open source project in GitHub, and Envoy is hard. So Envoy भनेको चाहिँ a simple proxy, let's say like Nginx SA proxy हामीले generally use गरिरहेको हुन्थ्यो, तर SA proxy sorry Envoy चाहिँ C++ मा build on C++, अनि most widely used नै भन्नुपर्छ. Like any of those service mesh I have known of, most of them are using the Envoy as a service mesh, or service mesh is using the Envoy proxy. So Istio architecture, don't get like too afraid seeing this thing. So we'll dig more into this. So तल हेर्यो भनेदेखि चाहिँ हाम्रो सर्भिस A, B अनि त्यसमा पडहरु छ, अनि Envoy proxy छ नि. So जुनै पनि जस्तो हामीले चाहिँ सर्भिस मेश अथवा Istio को सर्भिस मेश एप्लाई गरिसकेपछि चाहिँ all of those services like HTTP, gRPC, TCP, all of those services is flowing through the Envoy, अनि Envoy सँगै चाहिँ हाम्रो pod पनि छ. So any of those communication between any of the pods is through the Envoy proxy. So Envoy proxy चाहिँ each of the container अथवा each of the pod मा attach भएर बस्ने भयो. So र त्यो पडको लागि चाहिँ त्यो Envoy proxy भनेको चाहिँ एज अ लोकल होस्ट हुने भयो. सो हामीले फर इक्जाम्पल कुनै एउटा नोडको सर्भिस रन गरेर Nginx मा चाहिँ SSL टर्मिनेट गरे जस्तै के लोकल होस्ट समथिङ 3000 पोर्ट भने जस्तै. सो Envoy को लागि चाहिँ त्यो एक्चुअल सर्भिसको पड चाहिँ लोकल होस्ट टाइपको हुने भयो. सो देयर आर फ्यु थिङ्स, ग्याली अनि पाइलोस, सिटाडेल अनि मिक्सर भन्ने छ. सो यो सबै कुराहरु म्यानेज गर्नलाई चाहिँ देयर निड्स टु बी सम काइन्ड अफ कन्फिगरेसनहरु एप्लाई गर्नुपर्छ हैन. सो कन्फिगरेसनहरु एप्लाई गर्ने कुराहरु, अनि त्यसपछि त्यसलाई भ्यालिडेट गर्ने कुराहरु ग्यालीमा आउँछ, अनि त्यसपछि ट्राफिक म्यानेजमेन्टको कुराहरु पाइलोटमा, अनि त्यसपछि सेक्युरिटीको लागि SSL को कुराहरु, त्यसपछि TLS को कुराहरु आउँछ भनेदेखि चाहिँ त्यो कुराहरु चाहिँ सिटाडेलले म्यानेज गर्छ. र कुनै पनि पोलिसीलाई चाहिँ हामीले कुनै पनि पोलिसी एप्लाई गरिसकेपछि चाहिँ त्यसलाई इन्फोर्स गर्नको लागि चाहिँ देयर इज अ मिक्सर. So don't going like too deeply into the architecture. So यसको one of the like important feature भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ connectivity, because हाम्रो चाहिँ let's say any of those like any of language मा हामीले सर्भिसहरु बिल्ड गरिरहेको हुन सक्छौं. That could be like gRPC communication अथवा HTTP अथवा TCP, any of those service. So त्यो सबै सर्भिसहरु चाहिँ लाई चाहिँ डिस्कभर गरेर what type of सर्भिससँग कनेक्ट गर्ने अथवा कुन प्रोटोकल युज गरिरहेको छ, अनि त्यसपछि त्यसको लागि चाहिँ अलि इन्टेलिजेन्टली कुनै एउटा राउटिङको कन्फिगरेसनहरु मिलाउनु पर्यो भने चाहिँ द सर्भिस मेश हेल्प्स अ लट. सो त्यो केसमा चाहिँ जस्तो सिम्पली Kubernetes युज गर्यो भने चाहिँ द्याट इज नट टु अफ द कन्टेक्स्ट अवेयर थिङ Kubernetes itself. So that's a feature like Istio or the service mesh adds on. So next is the security. So there are like when there are lots of the services, lots of network calls, so this was saying between the service को TLS communication चाहिएला, so that if there is anything hacked or compromised in any of the services, so त्यसलाई avoid गर्नको लागि पनि so for applying the TLS across the service and TLS even across all of the mesh, so that त्यो mesh भित्रको भन्दा बाहिरको कुनै पनि सर्भिसले चाहिँ nothing can call the mesh भनेर चाहिँ, so that's a kind of security. And also in terms of the visibility of the service अनि त्यसपछि even for the egress traffic, so हामीले चाहिँ जनरली कुनै पनि एउटा एप्लिकेसन कुनै सर्भरमा रन गर्यो भनेदेखि चाहिँ we leave all of the like egress traffic लाई चाहिँ we leave all freely हैन, so त्यो कुरालाई चाहिँ Istio blocks by out of the box नै. So by default चाहिँ I don't want to let my application connect to any of the external world application, even database अथवा Redis or any of those calls. So even I am compromised, so त्यसलाई चाहिँ बाहिर जाने कुराहरू कुनै डेटा चाहिँ कुनै कल्स अथवा समथिङ चाहिँ मेरो प्रिमिसबाट चाहिँ बाहिर नजाओस् हैन. So that's the kind of thing the service mesh facilitates. So ingress को कुराहरुमा पनि what type of like what type of routes do I want to be it, like मेरो सर्भिसमा चाहिँ कुन सर्भिसमा चाहिँ कुन राउटहरु like I want to allow from the load balancer अथवा what is the rate I want to apply. Let's say I want to my service to be hit only like 10 like the concurrency of 10, or let's say like 60 times like in a 1 hour or something. So त्यस्तो कुराहरु चाहिँ it provides. So next भनेको चाहिँ policy, because हामीले अहिले कुराहरु जे गर्यौं त्यो सबै कुराहरु चाहिँ we have to write all in the policy. So यसको एउटा good benefit भनेको चाहिँ we can write all of those policies in a simple YAML format. So last time एउटा सानो हिस्ट्री जस्तो Kubernetes migration को लागि चाहिँ we are planning, अनि त्यसपछि त्यसमा चाहिँ that we are not thinking about the Istio अलि overhead हुन्छ कि भनेर. तर that's चाहिँ के प्रब्लम आउन थाल्यो भन्दाखेरि they were using kind of like Apache, अनि त्यसपछि कुनैमा Nginx, कुनैमा like if we have to allow the cores, अनि त्यसपछि some kind of like त्यो upload size देखि लिएर त्यो सबै कुराहरुमा चाहिँ we have to research more into like lots of joining points क्या. त्यो सबै points लाई चाहिँ Istio को simple YAML को फाइलबाट चाहिँ we can like include all of those things in a simple structure, so kind of easy to learn and to go forward also. So the policy enforcement को केसमा चाहिँ let's say if we have lots of services running, so त्यसमा चाहिँ कुनै एउटा policy मैले apply गरे भनेदेखि चाहिँ that should spread out to all of the services. Let's say thousands of instances चाहिँ कुनै एउटा service को run भएको छ भने that should spread out maybe in a few seconds अथवा in a less span of time मा चाहिँ सबैतिर circulate हुनु पर्यो. So that's a kind of good thing for enforcing the policy. अनि अर्को भनेको observability. मैले अघि हेर्दैदेखि भनेको चाहिँ that's the one thing हामीले पाएको एउटा राम्रो बेनिफिट भनेको चाहिँ यो मोनिटरिङको कुरा जस्तो लाग्छ क्या. when you are like 10 बाट 60 or 70 जाँदाखेरि चाहिँ if we were like installing the Prometheus or like the exporter or any of those exporter in each of the instance, like, and that would have taken lots of time, you know? So even like in terms of the tracing, it uses a Jaeger and also Zipkin one. So all of those network traces, so kun let's say gRPC method call garyo athwa kun HTTP call ma ayo, what is the request latency athwa what is the like failure sagi chaina 200 500 or like any of those response. So all of those things including the tracing is provided out of the box. So I'm saying if not using the service mesh things, so I'm saying let's say if you are using multiple services because PSP node or Go usually as we have to implement the specific to client ko tracing ko libraries are, so that gives a like kind of more overhead pani. So this means it's hard to bring the uniformity pani. So there might be like different services or different people writing their own tracing things, and so to सबैलाई standardize गर्नको लागि चाहिँ it's hard. So Istio organizes that all, and so we don't have to like apply each of those tracing or those monitoring or those custom metrics thing in each of the services. So त्यो overhead पनि Istio हटाउँछ. Also the traffic log, so if you have to see like envoy is the heart. So envoy ma चाहिँ every of the traffic logs or the monitoring is there. So this is the thing I've been saying repeatedly. So all of those services have sidecar attached. So it adds some kind of the overhead funny, because when we add each of the service or each of the pod, so this one saying sidecar has to be attached. Envoy is very less memory or the CPU or the resource consuming. This one saying. So securityलाई अलिअलि dig down गरेर हेर्दाखेरि चाहिँ, so when one of the pod is communicating with the another, so envoy-ले चाहिँ MTLS for all of those traffic the request type, so MTLS provide गर्छ. So despite of the type of traffic, we can enforce the SSL for each of those services. So any question up to this part, or we take it at the end? Okay, so let me face this one. So these are like a few of those facilities which is provided by the Istio, and त्यसपछि हामी डेमोमा पनि थोरै हेर्छौँ apart from this. So one of the challenges we face is not releasing all of the like newer services or the newer version of the service to live at once. So this was waiting some kind of like 75 or 25%. So this is one thing. So next thing चाहिँ हामीले यो गर्नुभन्दा अगाडि पनि, so one of the challenges we were facing as Oyster चाहिँ we had like dependency with the third party. So this third party dependency that was acting weird. So if the dev is performing, if their dev is performing well, and there is no parity between the dev and the production, so we need to have some way for testing the even the production endpoint. So we have to like take the burden from their endpoint also. So for our confirmation or from our confident for the deployment ko लागि पनि, so we have to be aware of that. So this like saying we introduce thing like let's say gray and the green. We had divided that into parts. So green one saying that's the app or that's the person which goes to the live user, and gray one saying so that's the thing which is being used by our internal user. So by using the same API endpoint, so we just split those traffic between gray and the green. So that gave us a lots of confidence in terms of the deployment. So I'm saying live money, we can check like if that service is performing well or not. So internal user sabai test गरिसकेपछि we can just release to the public. So releasing to public is not a nightmare after that. So two part ma pani so we use like kind of headers for that. So if the API is sending some kind of the header, so that will be routed to the internal or the gray application, and especially some kind of headers green app so that will go into the green service. So next is fault injection. So it's not that this is more of the like testing our application. If हाम्रो सर्भिस चाहिँ केही गरी चाहिँ कुनै फल्ट छ भनेदेखि चाहिँ how we can determine भनेर. So we can consider this as a kind of testing framework also. So हाम्रो सर्भिसले चाहिँ let's say if our service is not responding in 10 seconds, so what type of result I want to give, so I want to throw some kind of error हुन सक्ला, अथवा I want to do some retries over the service, अथवा I want to just break the service or break the communication between the service completely. So यो कुराहरु चाहिँ just by writing this kind of a simple YAML files we can achieve that. Next is the interesting thing यसमा चाहिँ, so even for the simulation of the error like 400 or 500 error, we can just inject and कुनै पनि सर्भिसमा केही पनि नलेखिकन चाहिँ we can say like I want to inject 4 error to 5% of our application, and त्यसपछि त्यो 5% मा चाहिँ error जाँदाखेरि if I need to be alerted, अथवा चाहिँ let's say those requests need to be regenerated, अथवा त्यसलाई चाहिँ फेरि I want to reprocess that request. So त्यो simulation को लागि पनि we use that, and using that पनि. So in terms of like delay ko लागि पनि, so if my application is delaying or some kind of like let's say for example कुनै पनि matching service को लागि, if some kind of a user like saying let's say premium र normal user भनौँ न हैन so I want to give some kind of a delay or some kind of low priority to the normal user तर I want to give very high priority to the premium user so अथवा let's say A/B testing को लागि पनि हैन premium र normal user को लागि चाहिँ I want to give a different kind of experience I want to release only like first version चाहिँ I want to just test it to the normal user and later say I want to release it to the premium so we'll just see that into a demo also so visibility ko kurama चाहिँ few of the add-ons or a few of those things which Istio provides because not only the monitoring like 200 or 4 or like any kind of a response to एउटा part भयो so त्यो response मा पनि what is the like trace or कुन सर्भिस ले गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ my request is failing हैन so last time हामीले एउटा recently face गरेको issue भनेको चाहिँ like हाम्रो चाहिँ Redis cluster was getting too slow हैन so API बाट request आयो so that was like acting too slow so what was the pin point हैन so let's त्यसमा चाहिँ Redis रहेछ अथवा MySQL is acting slow भनेदेखि चाहिँ so we can see all of those traces so Redis call गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ we saw like 5 seconds चाहिँ Redis मा key value तान्नको लागि चाहिँ that was being spent so त्यो कुराहरु चाहिँ that was provided by the tracing so one is the key so we can see all of these graphs between the communication between those services like what is the response rate all of those things we will see in a demo and out of the box ma चाहिँ it provides the graph and a dashboard also and Jaeger पनि छ so we'll dig into the demo so त्यसमा चाहिँ धेरै गइन so in terms of security मा चाहिँ in terms of like MTLS त भइहाल्यो so त्यो बाहेक चाहिँ if I want to allow my API request to certain kind of IP list so त्यो कुराहरु पनि we don't have to like go into much of the lots of tools मा चाहिँ we don't have to play about that just like applying the YAML rules in the Istio and we can achieve that so in terms of resilience we already talked about that so getting there मा चाहिँ we are lucky because we started like Istio from the day one by sharing the experience so if you are using Kubernetes to some of the applications so in terms of the migrating just start with the few of the services because it doesn't like Kubernetes ma matrai run गरेको जस्तो चाहिँ अलि हुँदैन because first of all चाहिँ when we are starting to use the Istio in the early days we had lots of issues so त्यो issues चाहिँ we suspect about like service mesh को हो अथवा application को हो हैन so sharing same one of the story हाम्रो चाहिँ Redis connection close नभएको रहेछ so in the earlier days so Redis connection was not close and Redis connection any services establish gare so there was kind of like Redis connection fail so we're using the Redis of AWS and there was kind of limit for the connection so two connection limit reached bhaisakepasi so it started to drop the Redis connection and हामीले चाहिँ we had like hard time figuring out so because application the locally the सबैमा run भइरहेछ locally the कसैको किनभने locally there might be people running one or two services locally and connecting Redis so that issue is not figured but we are digging more into like raising issues in the service mesh ko GitHub ma talking with the community people so that is closing the Redis but later we figured out there was a problem with the application itself so त्यो कुराहरुमा चाहिँ for getting the confidence also just start with a few of those services अनि just apply with the kind of loads or with the one which like त्यसमा चाहिँ if you can see the impact more frequently or more often अथवा सजिलैसँग if you can see the impact let's say A/B testing को लागि नै भनौं न for example we can apply that so that we can be confident while releasing our apps हैन so that gives more of the किन चाहिँ service mesh use गर्यो भन्ने कुराहरु चाहिँ so there are like few of the services which provides Istio or the service mesh out of the box अथवा inbuilt Istio so त्यसमा चाहिँ GKE Google को Kubernetes engine provides itself so त्यो सर्भिस मेशलाई चाहिँ like upgrading the version को कुराहरु अनि त्यसपछि managing all of those mesh things चाहिँ that is handled by the cloud side so it's still not a freelance so there are lots of things and lots of things to be researched and apply so because there are lots of fancy things pani and especially API is kind of like because these things are evolving so if we can see like releases there are lots of even security patch and like resource consumption ko patch, so there are lots of things. So to we have to be synced, so need kind of more time to be synced with their releases, and forgetting that synced with our even our application also. Request the extra resource and a bit of lagging pani, not to like maybe some microseconds, but if that matters, that's a kind of, I would say it as a trade-off. I need too many YAMLs to configure because each of those rules, so we started getting rules after rules. So many rules I want to do this thing, so many rules so each of those rules YAML organized that will be like too much of the YAMLs. But if we use Helm or any kind of those customizations, so that would be more of the fruitful. So let's dive into a demo. So before that, if there is any question, let me stop my screen. Let me share my whole screen. Okay. So yes, I'm really 1.6.9 Istio ko version हाले हैन. It's also like open source thing. Istio मात्रै भनेर सर्च गर्यो भने पनि you can see one of the top things. त्यसपछि GitHubमा पनि there are like lots of issues and lots of contribution going on. So मैले चाहिँ थोरै पुरानो I tried it on latest one, there were kind of like bugs or something, so I just use this one. So यसको installation पनि एकदम सजिलो छ. I have like one of the cluster created in the GKE, simple goal cluster create गरेँ मैले. So Kubernetes. So easy to go on using the GKE. That's just slower. That's the time slow. So okay, so मैले एउटा simple cluster create गरेँ which I think 1.7 version जस्तो लाग्छ. So त्यसमा चाहिँ I just pull up the kubeconfig file अनि त्यसपछि चाहिँ I just install istio install and I add like a bit of customizations. So यसमा थोरै जाम, so that will be more of the thing. So if I go into the manifest and sorry, the profiles, so by default it was like these profiles. If you want like the demo profile, which is kind of like minimal things, default which works but not too in the production. So it has like kind of all of those manifest files in there. And this one I added bits of the customization. So because I want to enable the Prometheus, the Kialigo dashboard, the Grafana dashboard, I want to enable the tracing things also. So I just do istioctl भनेको चाहिँ यसको binary. So यसको binary यसमै हुन्छ istioctl install अनि -f. I want to install or include this custom file also. So त्यसको लागि चाहिँ manifest profiles custom. So this is kind of already installed thing. तर यो हुँदाखेरि चाहिँ यो install हुँदाखेरि चाहिँ यसले create गर्ने कुराहरू चाहिँ it creates all of those things inside the Istio system namespace. So हामी चाहिँ ns गर्यो भने अथवा get all dash namespace Istio system. ओके सो यसमा चाहिँ के क्रिएट भएको छ भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ जस्तो सुरुमा हामी इन्स्टल गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ क्रिएट छ ग्राफाना अनि त्यसपछि इन्ग्रेस गेटवे सो एनी अफ दोज कमिङ फ्रम द लोड ब्यालेन्सर इज ह्यान्डल्ड बाई इज लाइक interrupted by this ingress gateway and this way it forwards all of the traffic. So tracing को अनि STOD which is the core अघि हामीले कुरा गरे जस्तै जस्तो सर्टिफिकेट म्यानेजर अनि पोलिसी इन्फोर्सरहरू सबै चाहिँ that is inside this STOD which is kind of like they say are the microservice तर STOD चाहिँ we can say like kind of monolith thing. So Kiali, Prometheus, all of those things and services are created. So all of these things say after getting like installing the Istio. So एउटा क्विक डेमोको लागि चाहिँ so I have used one of the microservices को demo. So यसमा चाहिँ there are few of those services. एउटा simple shopping application. So cart service, checkout services, email services यिनीहरू सबै छ हैन. So let me so यसमा चाहिँ I'm going to use the release and Kubernetes manifest first one. So this has all of those deployments thing like I want to deploy this version of the email service and like the health checking thing with the gRPC health check probe and the service for exposing the traffic. So your supply services are going. So all of those manifest or all of those YAML files of the Kubernetes. Yes, so let me just quickly apply. kubectl applied f Kubernetes manifest demo. I just applied all of those things, so I'll repeat better. So let me go and check the ingress things. So kubectl get service -n istio system. So your load balancer saying this service is being exposed. So let me quickly go through this one. Okay, so this is like a online store with all of those like microservices thing. I can like add to cart, and especially I can do the kind of place order, check out all of those things at once. So if we have to like monitor these things, so that's why simply going through go through here. I've been STOCTL dashboard and Kiali. So this gives like kind of fancy dashboard for being all of our services. How it is communicating the here, where is the traffic being routed, all of those things. If there is any kind of failure, so all of those things are shown by this simple dashboard. Okay. So we have like so we have in the default namespace we have two applications and Istio system and there are 6 applications which is the Istio go inside applications. So if we go into like 2 of these services, so we don't have to like add any of those things. All of those things are running inside the mesh because so if I go to kubectl get pods, so pods means the container. So we can see like it has 2 by 2 means there is one container of this ad service and another one is the proxy. So if you go into and kubectl prescribe pod and if I give this name, so it's not saying there is one of the Istio proxy things, so which is always attached to this container. On your there is a server which is the ad service. So for all of these services there is the Istio proxy attached and it is auto discoverable. Like if I add any of the rest of the new service also, so the proxy will be attached and all of those monitoring things will come up in here. So if I go into like the card service and check like what are the services the card service is calling, so the card service is getting a request from the front end and the checkout service and it is going to the service co part, then is going to the Redis. So all of those things like what is the traffic, what is the like success rate, all of those things. Apart from this kind of a graph also we can get more visibility. So service which service is calling to which of the service. So let's say if you have to go into like shipping service, we can see like, so let me stop this refresh to every 5 minutes. Okay. So if I go into, let's say, the email service, if I go to email service, so all of those things, like there is no error rate in the email service. What the request thing, so there was one of the requests, no, and so we can see all of these things. And also to the services, so what are the labels, so everything which is inside the mesh, we can see from here and get more of the visibility. So even the traces, I don't think the Jaeger is configured here, but I can see all of those traces, like what is the request time, all of those things in this simple graph. And also the Istio configs, if we have applied any of those configuration, any validation error, the hit error, so we can see all of those things. So you by extension, so it's not like, what is providing all of these data on, I think there is a Prometheus at the heart. So we can use any of these metrics from the Prometheus and build our own dashboard. So if you go into like simple Grafana dashboard, if I go into Grafana, I think we are just 10 years left. So if we have to like create a new dashboard by using the matrix, because someday, like if you have to create an alert, so alerting is not included. So if we need to get alert, so we have to pull the matrix from the Prometheus, because every request going through any of these services is going through the proxy, and all of those requests is being recorded by the Prometheus. So we can extract all of those metrics from the Prometheus and build our own custom dashboard also. So also there are like how we can see like few of those pre-built matrices, like if we need to go into, let's say, the service dashboard. Okay, so what are the services? So you have the externally connect Google APIs. So if I go into, let's say, the currency service, okay. Okay, so if there is any kind of like 500 or 5 6 response service, I know what is the request duration in terms of all of these P90 99 values. So all of those things it provides out of the box, so we don't have to install any of those things. And if the MTLS is activated or not, so all of those things is provided by the Grafana. So let me go into quick few of the YAML things which we can quickly do. So यसमा चाहिँ मैले एउटा सिम्पल क्यानरी टाइपको डिप्लोयमेन्ट तर इन्टरनल युजर्सको लागि मात्रै. So we were using front-end we are using like version 002 service version user. So यसमा चाहिँ the store, so यसमा चाहिँ that is showing like $75 को पर्छ, there is a free shipping हैन. So if I want to give like let's say $50 of the purchase चाहिँ for the premium customer को लागि दिनु पर्यो भनेपछि चाहिँ or somewhere around that, that's kind of like a simple logic. So त्यसको लागि चाहिँ, so this is the like simple version which is using the $75 को configuration. So I'm changing this a bit. So I'm changing this to somewhere around, okay, to $50. अनि त्यसपछि मैले एउटा सिम्पल एउटा इमेज बनाएको थिएँ. So it is inside the custom. So this is my new version. So new version लाई चाहिँ मैले track premium भन्ने लेभल दिएँ हैन. So let me apply this one. And त्यो बाहेक चाहिँ, so I have the rule which says like if the header is, if the user track is premium, so if the application is sending the header user track premium छ भने चाहिँ, so that would direct the request to my latest version which is the subset premium. So this is a subset premium. I don't say that will go to the normal one. So let me apply that sense. And you see the kubectl apply -f. Let's go to custom, apply the custom deployment. Okay, so if you're a new deployment, if we go into this one quickly, so we have new set of the deployment, the front-end premium. So let me apply the Istio manifest also. Apply Istio manifest.yaml. So अब म यतापट्टि आएँ भनेदेखि चाहिँ so all I see is like $75 purchase. So if I pass some header, so I'm using a simple extension called more header. So if I say something like user track premium हाले भनेपछि चाहिँ okay, so I'm getting like $50 of the purchase. So every time मैले कुनै पनि request गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ that could be like cookiesहरू पनि हुन सक्छ. So that also create all of those things from the cookie. So instead of a header, we can use the cookie to store any of those values, and we can direct all of the requests from a premium customer to the next of the service. So it's not saying like if I'm the internal user and I want to do some kind of testing, so I can just pass this error and I can just fall back into the recent of the newer deployment. So that's a kind of one of the things. And apart from that, you can apply that like MTLS also. So security go term my so let's say if I have I've installed one of the pods in here. Monitoring a simple nginx core container up what I think. So if I go into here, so I'm not inside the service mesh, I'm using another monitoring namespace. So if I go into here, so I have the front end source. So A2. So when front end call even I am not inside the service mesh, when front end call I am getting the full response. So that is kind of like security go term that might not be like good things. So if any of those things is compromised or even next of the namespace if there is any kind of intrusion or bad codes, so all of those can call this service. So by simply applying the MTLS, by enforcing the MTLS between the like front end service ko lagi, if I just simply apply kubectl apply MTLS ko rules apply I will not be able to reach from the nginx pod by simply this one. So my service will be reachable only from the service mesh. So this is the failure. So also if we need to apply any kind of the authorizations rule in terms of the error, so we can apply this one. So if I go into like apply, so it's not for one to be authorized or authenticated for using the front end service, there should be the header request of hello world. So if I go into this one, so access denied, so I won't be able to access. But if I inject some header like hello world, then I should be able to access. So if I go simply and hello world inject, so I'm able to access. So even that, and even by using the JWT things, so we can like apply those authentication and authorizations by using the JWT also. So that's a thing in terms of the securities. And if you have to inject like or like let's say if you need to apply some kind of more fancier rules, so let me just quickly go through a few of the demos which I generally prefer. So let's say for getting into Canary deployment, like 50-50 or something like that, I want to deploy subset Canary and the stable malloy and whatever by using these simple headers. And also for like that could be circuit breaker or if we need to inject some kind of a fault delay. So what I'm saying, let's say 50% of the service I want to inject the delay of 20 seconds. Also, if there is a header, then so we can like apply all of these like down through the rules after rules. So you guys must say I will apply the delay if the header has some user, and then after injecting the delay, then apply the service or send the traffic to the Canary service. So there are like multiple like chains of rules over there in a simple YAML file, and just by applying this simple rule, we can that will be all of the rule will be enforced in like few milliseconds or in a second, I would say. So even for the mirroring, so mirroring bunny that is way more useful. So I'm नयाँ सर्भिस कुनै इन्ट्रोड्युस गरौँ सो त्यसलाई चाहिँ all the traffic has to be mirrored to another service which is connecting to let's say staging को database for kind of load testing or some kind को लागि. So by just using the mirror logic, we can just to the stable subset will go to the Canary also. So that's a kind of interesting things we can do, and I think that would be more of a useful. So that's all for today for the demo and the presentation. So I think it has been a good learning experience. So if there is any question, so feel free to unmute and let's talk. Thank you all. Do you guys run Istio locally too? How do you develop in a local machine when you have 50 plus services? Locally, there is microcares. So this is like this makes more easier for learning Istio locally. Istio inbuilt नै दिन्छ microcares. So त्यसको लागि चाहिँ तर for development machine we are not I don't think anybody is using Istio locally. Microservices gives lots of benefits for that. It has inbuilt Istio, and you can just enable the Istio add-on and apply all of those Istio rules, all of things locally.
Hi, Raju. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, hi.
Great
Yeah,
talk. हामीले पनि within a projects Istio method use गरेर back 2-3 weeks ago. अनि during those time हामीले त्यो सबै setup गरिसकेपछि चाहिँ what we found was like it gave us like more than what we needed. So exactly भन्दा चाहिँ let's say I just want to get the traffic management right, but I don't want securities, policies or metrics and visibility into my systems. किनकि मैले चाहिँ पहिला चाहिँ I am using already open telemetry or open tracing mechanisms, so I'm already hooking up my systems to Jaeger and things like that. And what I found was like it took a control of from ingress to egress to traffic management to policies to securities to visibilities, logs and things like that. And so what I ended up doing was like in a team was like, okay, if I want to security or service discovery, use console. And if I want to have open tracing, things like that, use Grafana, Prometheus or something like Jaeger. And if I want security, I could have like a console or maybe nowadays maybe EVPF or we scope the tools. Now you can, without having a proxy, just what I say, without having an envoy proxy, we can just inject our code to the kernel space, and from that we can trace the packet. And this we are getting a good tracing and good observability in a systems, including all the network calls. Ani, what do you think about this? And getting everything Istio is kind of a like all-in-one solution. That's the feel भइरहेको थियो कि हामीलाई चाहिँ. So do you think this is disadvantage or do you think it's advantage, and if it's advantage then why is that advantage?
So त्यसमा चाहिँ या you're also true, तर त्यो निड चाहिँ कसरी एउटा डिक्लेयर गर्न सकिन्छ भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ सो लेट्स से त्यो ट्रेसिङको लजिक्सहरूदेखि लिएर अनि त्यसपछि सेक्युरिटी कुराहरूमा वी क्यान एप्लाई थ्रु द AWS अथवा देयर लट्स अफ लाइक देयर लट्स अफ के जस्तो क्यालिकोहरू छ होइन. सो देयर आर लट्स अफ थिङ्स, तर जस्तो L7 लेयरमा चाहिँ अपरेट गर्नको लागि चाहिँ वी द्याट सुड बी अवेर अफ द L7 लेयर. अनि अल्सो जस्तो त्यो कन्सोल युज गरेर अथवा त्यो डिफ्रेन्ट सर्भिसहरूमा क्लिक गर्नु पर्ने. सो आई टु लर्न कन्सोल अनि इफ देयर इज अ भर्जन अपग्रेड अफ द कन्सोल, सो त्यसमा फेरि सिफ्ट हुनु पर्यो, फेरि कन्सोलको सट्टा अर्को सेक्युरिटीको लागि अर्को MPLSको लागि अर्को हुनसक्ला होइन. सो त्यो सिफ्ट चाहिँ धेरैतिर हुने भयो क्या. सो आई वाज अल्सो ट्राइङ लाइक few months ago I tried Istio अनि त्यसपछि backed off किन भन्दाखेरि there was no need के को लागि भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ people are not caring, or like if there is like simple API calls and API to API को communication छ, not too much for services अनि not too much of the management को लागि, if there is not workforce also. So त्यो केसमा चाहिँ I didn't prefer Istio. तर चाहिँ there are lots of connecting dots. So each of those services मा let's say you have to use the tracing को client use गर्नु पर्यो होइन. अनि त्यसपछि त्यसको फेरि आफ्नै छुट्टै छुट्टै लजिकहरू होला अथवा कुनै कसैले डिफ्रेन्ट टाइप्स अफ ल्याङ्ग्वेज युज गरिरहेको छ भने त्यो सबैजनाले फेरि ट्रेसिङको लाइब्रेरी युज गरेर ट्रेसिङ मिस हुनेदेखि चान्सदेखि लिएर त्यो धेरै कुराहरूलाई चाहिँ सो Istio इज काइन्ड अफ लाइक मोर अर्गनाइज त गर्छ नि. तर फेरि डिसएडभान्टेज भन्नु पर्दाखेरि चाहिँ वी आर गिभिङ लाइक फुल of the things होइन. सो त्यो हुँदाखेरि चाहिँ there might be some problem in terms of upgrade. So त्यसमा चाहिँ recently Istio upgrade लागि चाहिँ we can test even version testing in a Canary. So if I'm using 1.69 I can install like another version of the Canary of the Istio core version and त्यसपछि I can test and I can confirm like 1.7 is good for me. So so त्यो kind of flexibility provide गर्छ. सो त्यही नै हो. मैले मेरो एक्सपिरियन्समा चाहिँ लट्स अफ थिङ्सलाई चाहिँ म्यानेज गर्नु अथवा लट्स अफ थिङ्स लर्न गर्दै जानु भन्दा चाहिँ इफ Istio प्रोभाइड्स सो त्यसमा चाहिँ सबै एरनहरू इनेबल गर्नुपर्छ भन्ने पनि भएन. सबै एरनहरूले युज पनि गर्दैन होला होइन. सो दोज विच आर रिक्वायर्ड सो त्यो कुराहरूलाई चाहिँ इनेबल गरेर इफ वी आर गेटिङ अल अफ दोज थिङ्स वाइ नट.
Thank you so much, Raju. I think we still have some time left. 5 भनेर त हो हैन. If there's any other question, otherwise I would like to, give my thank you speech.
I have one.
Okay.
Hello, Raju Dai. के भन्छ आई वान्टेड टु आस्क हुन्छ नि लाइक तपाईँहरूले प्रोडक्सनमा Istioहरू मात्रै युज गर्नु भएको छ कि लाइक हेभ यु अल्सो लाइक गिभ ट्राई टु कन्सोल एन्ड लिङ्कर डी बिकज लाइक आई थिङ्क द अन्डरलाइन एपिआई त्यो सर्भिस मेस इन्टरफेस इज काइन्ड अफ द सेम, तर लाइक वाट आर द डिफरेन्सेस बिट्विन अल दिज टुलिङ हुन्छ नि लाइक त्यस्तो के छ त्यसमा?
We tried and सुरुमा स्टार्ट गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ we had the option of लिङ्कर डी र Istio. सो त्यसमा चाहिँ लिङ्कर डीमा दुईटा भर्जनमा रिसेन्ट भर्जन भर्खरै आएको थियो. वी स लाइक वे लेस अफ द कन्ट्रिब्युसन फर द लिङ्कर डी. अनि त्यसपछि गिटहबमा वी सर्च अबाउट लाइक सपोर्टको कुराहरू, त्यसपछि इस्युज त्यो कुराहरूमा चाहिँ लिङ्कर डी वाज बिट ल्यागिङ. तर आई थिङ्क आफ्टर गेटिङ इन्टु द CNCF लिङ्कर डी इज अल्सो अ गुड अप्सन. तर हामीले चाहिँ लिङ्कर डी सुरु few weeks for the experimentation purpose if you are लिङ्कर डी भनेर ट्राई गर्यो. तर त्यसपछि चाहिँ we didn't use. So I think भर्जन 1 भन्दा अगाडिदेखि युज गर्न थाल्यो हामीले Istio चाहिँ. सो सुरुमा चाहिँ we spend a lot of time like getting into this and त्यसपछि cluster upgrade time we had few of the down times, so learning so we have reached some kind of stability I would say. तर Istio नै we had not used like other messes like building console or anything like that.
Okay. I guess this was very informative. म स्पर्शसँग पनि कुरा गर्दै थिएँ नि. He was telling me how new things you were able to share with all of these guys. Rajuji, thank you so much for your time. And as a thank you and token of appreciation, we thought you would like a year subscription of Spotify. We heard that you like music, plus यसमा podcastहरू पनि धेरै हुन्छ अरे. So thank you so much, Rajuji, and thank you everyone for participating and making Leap Talk so much better. And it was so nice of you to tell us that you had listened to Leap Talk, and we would love for you to come in the future and do more of the Leap Talks. So I guess if there's no more questions, if this is it, we would like to wrap up.